Let me record. So what is garbage collection? Garbage collection is a process of cleaning up or clearing the unreferenced objects from your heap memory. Fine. And who takes care of garbage collection? Usually there would be a component in your .NET framework called as garbage collector. So garbage collector would be taking the responsibility of clearing of the unreferenced or unused objects from your system's heap memory. Making sense? Vishwa? Fine, let's proceed. So how will you know when to process the garbage collector? So usually there would be something called as optimizing engine available with your garbage collector, and that would keep on running, and that would determine when the garbage collector should be called and when the heap memory should be cleared of unused objects. Fine. Now that's about your garbage collector. Now let's move on and let's try to understand something called as common language runtime. So what is a common language runtime? The .NET framework provides a runtime environment called as common language runtime, which runs the code and provides services that make the development process easier. Fine. So what is the common language runtime? Common language runtime, or in short we call it as runtime, its purpose is to run the code and make the development process easier. Okay, so these are the two different responsibilities associated with your common language runtime, and many times it is considered as the heart of your .NET framework. Making sense? Good. There are multiple responsibilities associated with your common language runtime, and here are few of them. The first one is your just-in-time compilation. So what is just-in-time compilation? Just-in-time compilation is the process of compiling your MSIL into your native code, and this happens just before your code gets executed. That's the reason why it is called as just-in-time compilation. And we understood that just-in-time compilation is the responsibility of your JIT compiler or just-in-time compiler, right? So now we are saying that the just-in-time compilation is the responsibility of your CLR. So what does that mean? That means that just-in-time compiler is a part of your CLR. Fine. And the second responsibility of your CLR is garbage collection. We understood that garbage collection is the responsibility of something called as garbage collector. Now we are saying that garbage collection is a responsibility of your CLR. What does that mean? That means your garbage collector is a part of your CLR. Fine. Good. And the third and other important responsibility associated with your CLR is called as code verification. What is code verification? Think that you have created an object of A type, and think that you have created an object of B type. Then you should not perform the operations related to your A type on your B type. Fine. For example, think that there is a integer type value. Integer type value has a value of 100 in it, and now you can't perform the string type operations on integer type value, right? So you can't add ABC to 100, right? So it doesn't make sense. So this is called as type safety. So usually as part of your code verification, your CLR is entitled to maintain the type safety, and it should also be responsible of taking care of your calls which are being made from your objects. They should not be performing unintended functions. For example, think that you have logged into a particular machine with some user credentials, and that user doesn't have access to a particular folder on your C drive. Then as part of your program, you have written some logic to access some file inside your folder which is restricted. So here your .NET framework or CLR for that matter is responsible for restricting the code from accessing unintended memory locations and performing unintended functions and maintaining type safety. This is called as code verification, and this verification is a part of your compilation again. So when you are compiling your code, the code verification also happens automatically. Making sense? Yes or no? Is it clear or not? Good. So finally, the fourth and final responsibility associated with your CLR is that your running or execution of your code. So it should be executing your code or running it in your runtime whenever it is needed. So what does that mean? You will compile the code using your just-in-time compiler and you will immediately execute it. Making sense? Good. So that is about your common language runtime. Apart from your common language runtime, as we discussed earlier, you should understand that there are multiple things inside your .NET framework. Here are few of them. So there are two different components associated with your .NET framework. First one is called as your class library and second one is called as your common language runtime. We understood what is common language runtime. Now let's try to understand what is a class library. Fine. Hello, Vishwa. So after your common language runtime, you have something else called as class library, right? So what is your class library? The .NET Framework class library is a library of classes or group of classes, interfaces, and value types. And in the sense, it is a group of types. So we understood that class and interface can be called as type, right? So you should understand that .NET Framework class library is a group or library of your classes, interfaces, and value types that are included in your .NET Framework SDK. Fine. So usually for developing the code, you might be requiring some predefined classes, like you need a string class, you need a integer class, you need a boolean class, you need a long class, double class, and you need multiple other types of classes, right? So all the classes which are required for running and development of your code are put together. Classes and types, everything put together would be called as your class library. Making sense? Good. And this class library provides access to system functionality and is designated or designed to be the foundation on which your .NET Framework applications, components, and controls are built. So whatever controls you see, or whatever components you see, or whatever components or controls you will be building, so you'll be using predefined classes of system type, right? So all of them put together are called as your class library. Fine. And what will they do? They'll help you in developing the code and creating customized functionalities on top of it. Making sense? Good. The third term associated with your .NET framework is called as common type system. So what is common type system? Common type system defines how types are declared, used, and managed in the common language runtime, and is also important part of the runtime support for cross-language integration. Let me tell you what does your common type system refers to. For example, think that you are writing your code using your VB.NET and your friend Sai Krishna is writing your code using his code using C#.NET, fine, or C++, Visual C++. So, and both of the codes, they should be integrated together, right? And they should communicate with each other, which means they should be interoperable between each other. Then, for that matter, what happens? Think that you have a integer type or numeric type variable which is declared as int in your C# code, and in his VB.NET code he should be having some related type called as your integer type. So for you it is int and for him it is integer. Making sense? So for both of them to understand each other, so both the codes here, int will be converted into something called as int32 and his integer will be converted into int32, so that both of them they can communicate with each other, or both of them they can interoperate between each other. Fine. So think that you know Tamil, I know Telugu. So for both of us to communicate, we should have some common ground, right? We should have some common language using which we can communicate. So common type system is a set of types or group of types which are called as framework specific types, and these are used for interoperability between languages. So int32 is a framework specific type and part of common type system. Int64 is a framework specific type and is a part of your common type system. Similarly, there are multiple other types which are called as common type system types or your framework specific types, which can be helping or which would be helping your code in interoperating between multiple languages. Making sense? So what is the primary purpose of your common type system? What is the primary purpose of your common type system? The primary purpose of your common type system is that interoperability between multiple languages. Fine. What is the primary purpose of your common type system? It is used for interoperating between multiple languages code. Fine. Vishwa, are you there? Vishwa, can you hear me now? Good. So we were discussing common type system, and we understood that common type system is a group of types which would help your code in interoperating between multiple other languages. For example, think that one developer has written his code in C# and other developer has written his code in VB.NET. For both the codes to communicate with each other or interoperate between each other, for example, think the first person has declared a variable of int type, and similarly there is some other variable which is declared in your VB.NET which is used for storing the numeric values. Making sense? And there it is called as integer. Fine. And you know Tamil and I know Telugu. So what we should do, we should have some common ground or common language to communicate. So this specific types called as system specific types would be helping multiple languages to interoperate between each other. So in our earlier example, the int type of your first person would be converted into int32, which is a framework specific type, and the integer type in your VB.NET would be again converted into your int32, which is the framework specific type, so that both C# code and VB.NET code can interoperate between each other. Making sense? That's the purpose of your common type system. What is the major purpose of your common type system? Interoperability or cross language integration or communication. Fine. And we were understanding, so we also understood the responsibilities of your CLR. We understood that just-in-time compilation is a responsibility of your CLR, which means that here just-in-time compiler is a part of your CLR, and we understood that garbage collection is a responsibility of your CLR, which means that garbage collector is a part of your CLR. Making sense, Vishwa? And apart from that, you have some other responsibility called as code verification. What does that mean? Code verification is a process of maintaining type safety and restricting the code from accessing unwanted memory locations. For example, think that what is type safety? Think that you have created a particular variable of integer type and assigned a value 100 to it, and you have created one other variable of string type and assigned a value anil to it. So now you think that your code is trying to add here anil to 100. So it's not a proper thing to do, right? Because they are incompatible data types. So in this way, there is a very simple example. However, if we are dealing with very large composite types, then the type safety should be maintained, which means that only specific allowable functions associated with a given type should be executed. Apart from that, unwanted or unintended functions should not be performed on a given type. Making sense? Good. And coming to your unwanted memory locations, think that your code is trying to access some memory location which is restricted access. It should not be allowed, right? So that is a part of your CLR again. So as part of your code verification, it will be checking type safety, and it would be ensuring that your code doesn't execute unwanted functions or unwanted logic, and it doesn't access unintended memory allocations. Making sense, Vishwa? Repeating it just for you, we have already discussed it. Good. So running apart from that, you have something called as running code. What does running the code means? It means code execution. Apart from these 4 responsibilities, there are multiple other functionalities or responsibilities associated with your CLR. Fine. So after that, we understood that apart from your CLR, there is something else called as class library, which is a part of your .NET framework. What is a class library? Class library is a group of types, which means group of classes or interfaces or value types, which are required for you to build your controls or applications, or which are required for creating your custom code. Fine. So all of them, they are put together to be called as your class library. Fine. And we understood common type system. Apart from your common type system, you have something else called as your common language specification. So what is a specification? Before understanding what is common language specification, let's try to understand what is a specification first. What is specification? Specification is a set of rules which will guide you to some goal, or which will help you in achieving some goal, right? So that being said, your common language specification is a set of rules which will help you in creating code which is interoperable between multiple languages. Fine. So all the .NET specific languages, or all the languages which are under your .NET frameworks umbrella, they should be abiding by these set of rules so that they can interoperate between each other. Making sense? Vishwa, are you there? Good. So that being said, earlier we understood that interoperability is a responsibility of your CTS. Now we are saying that CLS is set of rules which will guide you through interoperability. So at the end, you should understand that your CLS is a part or subset of your CTS. Fine. What does CTS contain? The set of types which are called as framework specific types, which will help you in interoperating between multiple languages. And apart from that, it will also contain a set of rules which all the .NET framework specific languages should be abiding by, so that they can communicate with each other happily. So these set of rules are together called as common language specification. Making sense? Good. With this, we are done with our second module called as .NET framework. Understood? So let me share the notes with you. Let me know if you have received the notes or not.